Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this workshop about 2021 Agricultural Literacy Week. My name is Joy Warland, and I'm the consultant for continuing education in small and rural libraries at the Department of Libraries. I'm joined today by other Department of Libraries colleagues, Jonathan Clark and Karen Gravlin, Zia Luce, who is the Events and Engagement Coordinator at the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, and Margaret Woodruff, who's the Director of the Charlotte Public Library. So VT Lib and NOFA have sponsored Agricultural Literacy Week for several years, and in past years, libraries all over the state have hosted creative and innovative library programming to celebrate it. So our goal today is to share some ideas about how to celebrate this year's Agricultural Literacy Week, which will be from November 14th to 20th, and the theme this year is Land Connections. So we do this with the understanding that we don't really know what library programming will look like, so you can take any of these ideas, make them virtual if you need to, or do them outside or do them in your library. So we just have to wait. You can make your own decisions about that when we get closer to the time, but I think any of the things that we talk about will probably work in those ways. So again, the theme is land connections. Agriculture is obviously a huge part of Vermont. It impacts the character of the land surrounding our libraries, the communities our libraries in, the people that come into our libraries, and also the people who don't come into our libraries, to say nothing of the great fresh food that we all enjoy in Vermont. So Agricultural Literacy Week is a great entry point as libraries continue to expand their identity as community hubs and local identity of inclusive community organizations. So from book displays to inviting local farmers to present at your libraries to hosting a meal featuring food grown in your library garden, there's a large range of ways that libraries can celebrate and deepen connections to the land we inhabit. Collaborating with NOFA brings rich experience, subject expertise, and authenticity to programming in this area that might not be familiar to library staff. So in that sense, AgLit programs are perfect reminders that we as librarians don't have to be responsible for everything we do for library programs. We don't have to do this all on our own. And in fact, we all have experienced that some of the best library programs come out of collaborations. So this collaboration, I feel, hits a really sweet spot for community responsive programming and celebrating local identity, which is one of my favorite things about rural libraries, and we tend to be quite good at it. So we're going to share some background ideas for programs highlighting land connections, and after that, we'd love to hear from you about ideas you have for this year or things that you've done in previous years that you might be able to revisit for this year's theme. And now I'm going to hand it over to Zia from NOFA.
Great. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Wonderful introduction, Joy. So I don't know if everyone is familiar with NOFA, but it stands for, as Joy said, the Northeast Organic Farming Association. There are 7 chapters in different states, and we have a very robust chapter here in Vermont. We're a membership-based organization, and it's our 50th year. We work on a range of programs, policies, and projects, and you've probably come across some of them. So we have programs to help beginning farmers of all sorts, farm to school programs, food access, farmers markets. So we run the Farmers Market Association for the state, organic certification, and a whole lot more. So I plan events like Agricultural Literacy Week coming up in November, our summer workshops. We have wood-fired pizza socials on farms in the summers as well. And then our winter conference, which is a big conference and a beloved event in February. So that's a little bit about me and NOFA. We've been partnering with the Department of Libraries for Agricultural Literacy Week for a good handful of years. There have been various people on our end that have coordinated it. This is my first time doing it, so I am coming up to speed and whatnot. And yeah, when we get to the sharing part, I would love to hear what folks have done in the past. Every year it has a different theme. And I know some past years with libraries that particularly have kind of full kitchens, there's been cooking aspects, and there's a whole lot that we can do with this, and we're really grateful for the partnership. So yeah, focusing on land connections this year. I just wanted to show you our website and a little bit, give you a few resources here. So sharing the screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so here's our website. though our website is undergoing a huge renovation that won't be done by next month. But under events, right, we have Agricultural Literacy Week. So we'll be populating this with what's coming up next month. Still finalizing things, but to give a sense, here are the events from last year. There were 4 very popular weeknight happenings. Otherwise, I know that folks were wondering more about how to connect with their local farmers and stuff. So we have this great directory here, and again, it will be revamped pretty soon, but clicking around brings you to this really long list of certified organic producers that we work with and represent, and you can do search here. And then we have a farm and food guide. You can look at a map, which would probably be the most helpful to see where folks are located. And let's see, just going back here. Not that far. So lots of information about buying direct, the location of the farmers markets, farms with farm stands where the public can just stop by and buy food, community supported agriculture shares, and then a bunch of other background information. A little bit about CSAs for people that aren't familiar, why shop at a farmer's market, etc. Eating with the seasons. So just in terms of thinking through how you might engage individually beyond what we're going to offer, our website is a great resource. I also, can you see Dig in Vermont here? Joy's nodding, okay. So this was where I worked previously for Vermont Fresh Network and Dig in Vermont. So this is also a great resource and online platform to look for food and farm events, places, a great blog, some culinary and agritourism trails to tell people about, and then clicking on places also gives this directory of farm stand and you pick places, eateries that focus on farm to table. All of the farmers markets are also listed here: cheese and dairy, breweries and cideries, wineries, distilleries, maple syrup, et cetera, cheese. So just wanted to throw that out there. NOFA is a collaborative partner for Dig in Vermont, and this has a broader range, not just certified organic farms on here. So another nice resource. But yeah, so land connections for this year, we wanted to start off with a little poem. One of our speakers for the events this year will be Joseph Bruchek and his son Jesse. And Joseph has written all sorts of books and poems and whatnot. And talking about land.
Dakina. You cannot understand our land with maps. Lines drawn as if earth were an animal's carcass, cut into pieces, skinned, divided, devoured, though always less eaten than is thrown away. See this land instead with the wind eagle's eyes, how the rivers and streams link like sinew through a leather garment, sewed strong to hold our people, patterns of flower close to the brown soil. Do not try to know this land by roads. Hard lines ripped through old stones, roads which still call for blood, not just those who cross wild eyes blinded by twin suns startling the night, but also those who seek to follow the headlong flow atop that dark frost, unthawed by the sun. Those seasons and the insistent lift of the smallest seeds seek without ceasing space for the old soil. Instead, let your feet caress this soil, in the way of the deer, whose feet follow and form trails through the ways of least resistance, knowing ridges and springs, ways of wind through the seasons, the taste of green twig and tender grass, the sweet scent of rain urged up from moist earth. When you feel this land, when you taste this land, when you hold this land, as your lungs hold your breath. You will be the rattlesnake, always embracing earth with her passage. You will be the salmon, a chant whipped through the ripple. You will be the deer mouse, small feet stitching the night. You will be the bear, thunder held in soft steps. When your songs see this land, when your ears sing this land, you will be this land. You will be this land.
Did that come through for everyone?
Yes, that was beautiful. Thank you.
So to set the stage there for land as our theme, wanted to play that. So we are going to work with Joseph and Jesse Bruchak. They are available Wednesday, the November 17th. So we're pulling together that event. And our idea here is to link to our Abenaki Land Link project that we run here. Just bringing it up here for you, a little bit more information. So if you want to read more about it, here's a really short blog post. I'll be writing more soon because it is harvest season right now. So this is a partnership between NOFA and almost 40 of our growers this year who are growing crops for the Nulhagen Band of the Kusik and Abenaki Nation. So I'm working with Chief Don Stevens, and with our programming this year for Agricultural Literacy Week, we wanted to link it to this project. So we'll also have a session with Chief Don Stevens and some of the growers, and Joe Bosson of Vermont Bean Crafters, who helps us process the crops, so that folks can learn more about that project as well. And that will probably be on Tuesday the 16th as things are coming together here. Let's see, how do I stop sharing my screen here? There we go.
Okay, so now did you say the 16th or 17th?
So just this morning coming together for the 16th for the Abenaki Land Link project event, and then the 17th for the Bruchaks.
Okay, excellent.
Tuesday, Wednesday so far.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I am going to hopefully share my screen.
Okay.
And we're just going to talk a little bit about some ideas for library programming. So let me just see here. Is this working? Hang on. Is anyone seeing my screen?
We can see.
Oh, you
screen.
are? Okay,
Yeah.
that's excellent. It looks very strange to me. So
that happens.
we're always learning new things when we're using Teams. Okay, so we already talked about a few of these things, and some of them are pretty intuitive, and I know that your libraries are doing great programming already, and probably some similar things to this, but bringing the farmers into your library, if you can, would be great. Having, inviting them in to present. It would also be a great idea to ask if you could go and present a library program at a farm, especially, there might be social distancing issues still going on in November. So that's a great setting for to host an outdoor program. And it's also just very cool to get the library programming off site sometimes. And what could be a better collaboration than this for that? With the Bruchaks being the sort of headline presenters, there's so many opportunities there, because he's very prolific. We'll share a link later. We had, I think, over 50 of his books in the Department of Libraries catalog, and I know that a lot of your libraries have a lot of his books as well. So, and a lot of his books were great for all ages, so that could be like an intergenerational community read. I think would be wonderful. I know I would want to go to that. A lot of the schools, they have very active gardening programs, and so maybe come in and ask some of the students to come, again, virtually or in person if that works, but ask them to talk about some of the work that they've done growing food. Especially if you're in a rural community, there are probably youth that really know a lot about growing food, and so it's a great way to connect with them and highlight, honor the work that they're doing, and sort of publicize it, because that's an important thing of what libraries do. A community potluck made with local food, and that is something. There were some libraries last year that I think that actually managed to do that sort of virtually. So people are cooking food together. They might have even been a Rooted in Vermont program that was like this, where people made food and then they ate it together. And you know, the people were doing that for holidays last year. Obviously, it's not as community feeling as if you can do it in person, but it's a possibility. A lot of the Vermont libraries are involved in the Libraries Transforming Communities ALA project, which is about holding community conversations. I think this would be a great opportunity for that, to hold a community discussion around how to support local farmers. In one of our meetings, Karen had brought up the recent definition of organic and the conflict with that with Vermont dairy farmers, and just the struggles with that, and with food milk production in general, and the struggles with that in the last few years. So a discussion around that, because there's a lot of different ideas about that. I think that would be a really good way to bring in different voices and get different opinions on topics that are very important to our local communities in our state. And then you could see if you could have a guest presenter come from NOFA, either as a separate event or maybe at one of these other events. Because again, you know, they have this expertise that a lot of us don't necessarily have. We know we want to kind of connect with people who do have that expertise, but that's the beauty of partnerships, right? You can bring in somebody that knows about things that might not be your area of expertise. So again, we'll invite you all to talk some about your ideas as well. But that was just some sort of seeds, if you will, to get us thinking about programming. And we are now going to talk about, Jonathan, are you going to talk about youth program ideas, I believe? So I guess I do maybe need to share my screen anymore.
Oh, that's fine. You can keep it up. Again, I think, you know, this is such a great list of ideas, and I think that the youth programs, you know, really are variations of all these, and especially with a focus on intergenerational, where it's, you know, when you think about youth programs, then you're bringing in families as well. But I also think, like Joy was saying about not having expertise, where it really is that great idea of partnering however you can with local organizations, farmers, organizations like NOFA and other organizations in your communities, and then also, you know, leaning on the expertise of your communities, as Joy mentioned as well, whether you're having you know, teens leader program or things like that. And we know that program right now is a challenge because that looks very different from library to library and from week to week, and is a challenge. And we know that that is part of it. So again, being flexible in whether that is an in-person programming, whether it's outdoor, or if there is, you know, there's been a lot of great grab and go programs last year and were tied to Ag Literacy Week, where you know, have seed packets or things like that can go home, that can be part of a with instructions and programming that can be done that way as well. Those are some of the things that I sort of thought about in that way, but again, I'm interested to hear from some folks that did programs last year as well.
I'm just going to add that one of the things I've learned from Jonathan since he came to the department is, like, Jonathan, you talk a lot about a lot of programs being intergenerational. So there isn't this sort of siloed children's programs, and this is adult programs. There are a lot of family programs, and I think Agricultural Literacy Week is a perfect way to put that into effect. So I really love that perspective that you have shared with us.
Yeah, especially with young children. If it's a program for young children, there will be adults there. So it's good to think about how to involve them in what's happening.
And we also understand that you might not have a lot of bandwidth right now or capacity for a lot of programming. So we are coming up with a book and movie list that we will be sending out soon. And all of the titles will be related to land connections. And if you have done this kind of programming in the past, you'll see that we did it last year as well. So you can also look at that list on NOFA's website. I believe it's still up, and see, you know, what titles we've shared in the past, but a low key kind of display or even a book discussion on one of those books might be just a great way. If you're like, I really don't have the time to plan a huge program, there's still some, low capacity things that you can do and still participate in the event.
Okay, so Margaret, we would love to see your slides in here. Margaret's from the Charlotte Library, and they've really done a lot of things with sustainability and slow food and growing things and seed libraries. They're, I think, maybe one of the first Vermont libraries to have a seed library, if I remember right. So thank you so much for being here, Margaret, and please share some ideas with us.
Oh, you're welcome. So sorry, I should have asked you beforehand. I'm not so familiar with Teams.
Oh.
How do I share my screen? Do I go to the share tray? Is that what I'm doing?
You do, and and you should be able to select the window that you want to. And I did download your slides just in case something goes awry here.
Goodness. Sorry, I'm not showing my technological expertise here, am I? All right, let's try this
we
one
should
more
have had
time.
we should have had a rehearsal.
All right. I hope you will forgive me for being. It does not want to show me this. Oh dear. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Whoops, that's not it. All right.
Are you able to? Okay, I
think
found it here. If you
one more time, give me one more maybe three times a charm. I don't know. We'll see. Yay! There we go. All right. So, Agricultural Literacy Week. Yes. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. I think you could probably see the
yes,
the editing thing and everything else. But anyway, so as Joy mentioned, and as Joy knows, food is one of my favorite things. And Agricultural Literacy Week brings together, the whole joy of growing food and celebrating food that's grown here, along with the books and other resources that we all enjoy being part of the library world. So this is a picture of the crazy squash that we have growing in our library garden this year. It will be harvested shortly and made available to the food shelf. So we've been fortunate that that is one of the programs we've been able to develop over the years. Last year during COVID, we weren't able to do any, and actually this year too, but we ended up doing a dilly bean canning program to sort of introduce canning to people who might not be familiar with it. And so that was sort of another way to share food and food knowledge. And I think that's a really nice connection that libraries can make as well. We recently completed an addition here at the library, and that included digging up the driveway that was on the east side of our building that used to be the entryway and is now a rain garden to offset the impermeable infrastructure that was put in to add on to our library. And that enabled us to completely redesign all the gardens around the library. And I say we, that would be a loose term because I was a participant, but we were fortunate to have a landscape architect and a master gardener help run a program, a permaculture garden design program that combined landscaping skills with these holistic principles of permaculture, which I think if you talk about land connections, that, and I'm not a permaculture scholar in any way, but the little bit that I do understand it is that it is sort of honoring the place you are and helping to make it the healthiest place to grow food and the healthiest place for plants and animals, including humans, to thrive. Some of the focuses of our garden are pollinators. You see some bee balm here. We've also planted quite a few edibles in addition to the our food garden. We have some edibles planted in our regular garden, and next month our seed library coordinators will be doing elderberry syrup and fire cider programs using some of the plants that were in our garden. And then, as I mentioned, this all sort of folds back into that idea of regenerative landscaping and helping to build the soil and create a healthy place for things to thrive. Moving on. Library gardens are also a great way, as Joy and Zia both mentioned, to celebrate food sovereignty and biodiversity. Earlier this spring, Joy and I worked together helping to sponsor a slow food program called Plantaseed, and we had over 20 libraries receive packages of seeds through this program. And, you know, given the summer we had and the arrival time of the seeds, I don't know how successful everybody's harvest was, but I think just the idea of introducing seeds and sharing seeds is such a great way to start a garden and start the garden story. And the stories behind all of these seeds are so captivating. I think it makes you wonder, every seed you hold in your hand, you know, what is that going to do, and how is that going to connect you to the land? We've also done a number of book discussions. Gaia's Garden, which is sort of a primer in permaculture, was a program that was run in January of 2020. Hard to believe it was a live book discussion. And that kind of set the stage for us to adopt the permaculture philosophy for the garden design that happened here at the library. This past spring, we hosted Ellen Ecker-Ogden, who's a gardener and author from Manchester, Vermont, to celebrate her book, The New Heirloom Garden. And she is a big fan of seed libraries and of libraries. And it was just really great to be able to fold in her thinking and her knowledge into the programs that we offered and how we all think about gardens. And if you haven't seen this book, The New Heirloom Garden, it is beautiful. And she gives sort of different philosophy of gardening, garden designs, one of which is a slow food garden. And there's a permaculture garden, and it's all about making the most of your space, which I think is another nice connection back to the land. And then just quickly, I wanted to mention Braiding Sweetgrass, a book that you all may be familiar with, but I think it's been just such a groundbreaking, eye-opening book for so many. About this woman, Robin Waldkimmer, and her experience as a scientist and a Native American, and sort of how those two meet, and telling the story of her childhood and then her sort of scholarly experiences and the overlap. And we will be hosting an online book discussion of Braiding Sweetgrass with the Rokeby Museum in January, and would welcome any. I realize that's not during Agricultural Literacy Week, but I did want to mention that in case anybody would like to join us. And oops, now I'm going backwards. And then lastly, as Joy mentioned, you know, some of us aren't really sure what our programming is going to look like in November or even next year. So some of the great online resources that we've been able to use and take advantage of. One is Slow Food. I'm a member of Slow Food Vermont, and Slow Food USA has a host of resources and online workshops. There was a slow food seed summit this past year that was so eye-opening and really links back to the whole idea of connections to the land. So these are a couple of the workshops that were part of that. And I've included the link here so you can access any of the workshops. We are working here on trying to figure out how to create a seed sovereignty declaration and what that might look like for our community. Another more local resource is Harvest of the Month. And I think this really ties in so beautifully with all the NOFA resources about, where to buy local food and how to eat and enjoy it. And it's a fun addition to our Facebook page. We put the poster up at the library. We featured on our Seed Library blog, and they pick a harvest of the month, a produce of the month, and feature it with recipes and ideas. And you can get a set of the beautiful posters if you like. And those have all been some great resources we've used online and in person. So if anybody needs to get in touch with us, Karen Twininga and Linda Hamilton are the Seed Library and Garden Coordinators, and I'm the director. And one slide I forgot to add, but I did want to share is we have a portable kitchen, a Charlie cart here at the library that we got last year. And even though we couldn't do an in-person program, we did do a sort of video of us making applesauce using apples from the one remaining apple tree that's on the Charlottetown Green. So that was kind of a fun thing. And I'll put a link to the little video that we put together in the chat. But that's about all I have, unless anybody has any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Margaret. That was great. And this is a good time to open it up to other people. Feel free to unmic and share ideas if you have. There's a hand raising feature that there's a little tool that looks like a hand. You can click on that or write in the chat. I saw that somebody is on the phone. If you'd like to speak, whoever that is on the phone, if you can unmute yourself by doing *6. And we'd love to hear, first of all, questions, if you have any questions for Zia or Margaret or any of us, but also just, I think, ideas that this might have sparked for you, and ideas that programs you might have done in the past that are related to this general theme, and that maybe you'd want to revisit this year, maybe doing a virtual version this year, or any thoughts about that? So I'm curious, I saw when I was looking at the registration list that there were some people from a library that I'm pretty sure has a garden. I'm not sure if if those people are here, but we'd love to hear about that if you work at a library where you have a garden or are involved in a community garden. Tell us about your library's land connections, however broad it may be. One of the cool things actually about this theme, I think, is that it can go in a lot of different directions, and I think can incorporate some things that you may already be doing, but you could highlight them in this way. Oh, thank you. Margaret's put the link to the applesauce video in the chat.
Hi, George. Yeah, Zia. Oh, sorry, Jonathan.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Margaret, that was amazing. So fun to hear about. Yeah, I live in Heartland, and our library is on property with the recreation center right there and a community garden. And then the farmer's market happens right out front. And then the last year, a wood-fired oven has been built right in front of the library with some really neat pizza days that are happening. So yeah, I just love all of the possibilities of weaving together all sorts of events and land-based things. And every year we do try to pick a theme that's broad enough that could encompass kind of anything that not anything, but many things that you might want to do. Yeah, I really appreciated hearing that, Margaret. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to read the chat because there is the one person on the phone. We are interested in starting a seed library here in Manchester. What is a good way to get started on that? Margaret, would you want to speak to that? Because I think you're probably, I know you have experience with that.
Sure. I guess I guess you need to think about how you would like to get started, and we would be happy to talk with you. I know that the two seed library coordinators here in Charlotte are happy to share the joy of seed libraries. So that would be my suggestion is the best way to get started. We started with we got a grant to buy some seeds from High Mowing Seeds in Vermont. It was, it was very important that the seeds were local themselves. And I think that's one thing, there's as many different ways to do a seed library as there are anything else. So the people who run this seed library really want to make them heirloom seeds and try to keep them local. It doesn't always work out that way, but so I think, you might need to think about the philosophy of your seed library, because other places are just like, it's a big seed swap, which is also awesome too. So I think it just depends on how you want to do it. And then once you've done that, figure out where your seeds might come from. And then I think everybody hopes that eventually you will get to the point where it really is a library, so that someone has a great bean harvest with the beans they checked out from the library. They bring 10 back, and those get rolled into the library collection for the following year. So I don't know if that was very helpful, but I hope that gave you a little glimmer as to how to get started. And as I mentioned, we'd be happy to talk to you about any details if that would be helpful.
Excellent. So Howard, you mentioned that Brattleboro has started a tool library and is building a shed. Is that eventually to use, are these gardening tools, or is it? Yes. Nice. Well, we're going to move on, I think, to talk about promoting library programs, because that's, of course, always a component of getting an audience there and connecting with people. Because if you're doing a really cool thing and people don't know about it, then that's, they don't know about it then. But I do also think that with this kind of programming, there might be audience members that don't normally come to, a more traditional library program. So there might be some ideas to think about with that. Karen, do you want me to share my screen again, or do you have the slide up?
If you don't mind sharing your screen, that would be, thank you.
Okay, yep. You have to find it again.
Awesome, thank you, Joy.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Okay, so as Joy mentioned, a small, probably the final component to programming and planning a program, but one of the most important components to planning a program is promoting it. So just a gentle reminder, if you are planning a program, don't forget to promote. And these are just some ideas that I had. Sidewalk signs. I recently moved to Bradford, and she puts out a sidewalk sign every day, and every day I drive by and I'm like, oh, what's going on at the library? So it's a nice way, even if, I'm not even thinking about library programming and I drive by and see it and I'm like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And same with window displays. It's a great way to just, as people are walking or driving by, to garner interest. And both Jonathan and Joy mentioned collaborations with schools, if they're doing programs around agriculture or agricultural literacy. That might be a great way if you're in partnering with them, use them also to promote your programs. And so, ask teachers if they're able to, give a flyer out to the students. I know, I don't know if it's so popular here, but some schools have, online newsletters that they send out and are sometimes willing to put in your programs as well. Local businesses are another great way. So, Howard mentioned the idea of starting a tool library, while maybe going to your local gardening center. Ace Hardware store might be a great place to promote some of those kinds of programs and bring in some people who would be interested in those specific programs who might not normally come to the library. And as I mentioned, use your partnership. So if, NOFA's coming, make sure that they're promoting too and not just you. And so that way you can kind of make sure that you're reaching that audience that you're trying to get. And then I know most people are doing online promotions, but just a reminder, Facebook, Instagram, and if you are very brave and daring, TikTok is another place to get your get your programs out there and maybe garner interest from places that and patrons that might not normally come to programs. So
Great.
If anyone has ideas that they want to share on promoting your programs, please feel free.
And I want to invite the person again on the phone. If you want to share anything with us, please leap right in.
Looks like Margaret has it. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as promotion goes, if you're doing an online program that you would welcome people from other communities to be part of, the Vermont Library Association has, they include those items in their calendar, and that's a great way to sort of share what you're doing sort of across Vermont.
And also partnering with other libraries as well. Some libraries are really great at doing that for sort of community events or, sort of repeated programs that they promote, cross-promote is a really great idea as well.
And Zia, you have some NOFA tools, right? Or you will be developing some to share the programming for this particular week.
Absolutely, right. So I was just chatting with our marketing and communications folks today, and they're going to make a nice flyer, poster type deal, and then some sample social posts. So we can certainly provide all of the wording and copy and some graphics that people can freely use, and we encourage you to. Yeah, and then I'll just chime in that if I know we're a month away, so it's a little bit last minute, but if folks do want to plan particular things at your library that you would like others to know about, we'd love to include that under the umbrella of Agricultural Literacy Week, and we will put it on the website, promote it as best we can as well. So let us know if you, whatever it might be, small to large, let us know. Yeah.
I think that last year, one of the things that happened that was one of the silver lining kind of category things was that so many libraries around the state had people attending their programs from all over. I know I attended library programs in South Hero and Charlotte and Brattleboro, and people even had people from out of the state. I think some people even out of the country. So it is a nice opportunity to promote your library programs on. Just they're accessible in a way if you're doing them virtually that they normally aren't. So although we'd love to be together in person, that is a kind of a nice thing and gets an interesting mix of people. Is there anything else you want to add, Zia, about NOFA communication tools or I noticed we had a note here about the e-news promotion, if you want to just tell people about that.
Sure, and I can share my screen really quickly if you want to switch. Mm-hmm. Let's see. So on our website here, oops, is it showing it? This is the main page of our website here, front page. Down at the bottom, there's newsletter sign up if you want to stay up to date with everything that we have going on, including events. And then a nice thing that has shifted to e-news that's kid and family geared. So here's one from October 4th, cider donuts, fall harvest and more. And this is from a farmer, Missy of Drift Farmstead. So little videos, activities, recipes are constantly put out. So this is one of the newsletters that NOFA does that might be of interest to your audiences. Yeah, so a good way to stay up to date about what we're doing. This is where we will be promoting certainly Agricultural Literacy Week and everything else that we do. And happy to promote what you have going on as well.
So just to be sure we have this right, once all the events are finalized, like with the Brew Shacks and the Abenaki Land Project, the best place to go to find them is this website, right?
Right. So
Okay.
this will be our landing page that we'll be
Okay.
promoting. I will build this out, have all of the information there, the speakers, and then we'll end up putting the recordings up as well. Since it's virtual, we'll be able to record and folks can watch it after the fact.
Great. And the Department of Libraries will be sharing this out in our digest and things like that as well. But just wanted to make sure we knew where it would be on the NOFA page.
Right. Okay.
Does anyone else have comments, questions, cool ideas to share? The favorite food they've eaten this fall that was grown on a Vermont farm?
Mhm.
So many things to choose
Now,
from.
I just can't stop thinking about cider donuts now that was mentioned.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, oh, I want some cider donuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Tis the season.
Yes, it is. Well, I'm going to put an evaluation link to this workshop in the chat. That would be helpful for us if you could tell us. It's very short, so if you could just tell us how you felt about this. Kale tea. Wow. I love kale, but I've never had kale tea.
Mm.
Is that just what it sounds like? Kale brewed up in hot water? It's probably super good for you.
Can I just ask a quick question about the NOFA programs?
Yeah.
So if the links are available, are those things that like we could link to in our library newsletter to invite our patrons to listen to and enjoy as well?
Absolutely. Right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Please do.
All right. Well, Margaret, thank you so much for sharing the Charlotte programs, which are very inspiring. Zia, thank you for the work that NOFA has done with the Department of Libraries. This is I'm a big fan of this week, and some of my favorite memories from actually working in a library are programming of Agricultural Literacy Week. So it's nice to be working on it on this side and sharing it with other people. Again, just stay in touch with the Department of Libraries website and the NOFA website, and as updates are, as we finalize the book list and the programming and everything, all of that will be up, and we'd love to hear what you all are doing as you develop some programming for this. So thanks again for coming.
Great. Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.